What if we broke Sonic Adventure 2's multiplayer mode to fuse two characters together? Or to clone one character into three? It's actually pretty awkward, but don't say I didn't warn you. So, oh geez, I think it was 3 years ago now? 3 years ago, I found out a way to make Sonic Adventure 2 take two characters and combine them together in-engine through essentially sequence breaking the game. Not sequence breaking in a way achievable through normal gameplay, but more so like forcing the game to run a scenario it normally shouldn't be running. Like the game shows up expecting to bake a cake, but the only two ingredients it has are two characters who aren't supposed to be there. So it tries to bake the cake anyways, and the result is total chaos. Yeah, an odd metaphor, I know. But join me for quite the odd trip into Sonic's darkest depths as we break the beloved multiplayer mode of Sonic Adventure 2 Battle. Okay, so piggybacking off what I just said a moment ago, let's hop into a quick story time. It's 2018, and I'm feeling like I want to branch out and try some Sonic content. I had a ton of fond memories playing the silly battle mode in Sonic Adventure 2 on the GameCube. I mean, fond memories besides getting tortured by whoever was playing as Amy, because she's quite possibly the worst thing that happened to the game. Anyways, I digress. So I'm messing around on the GameCube version of the game, and I'm thinking about how the game would change if different characters were allowed in stages that weren't their type. This may not sound strange to some of you, because it was only half a year later that I started trying to beat the entire game as Rouge the Bat and Knuckles. Rouge tackling the light story, and Knuckles tackling the dark. But before even getting to that point where I was tackling stages in a single capacity, I was experimenting with the two-player mode, and all the weird quirks with it. Why was I interested in that in particular? Well, randomly, a long time ago in Turok 2 on the Nintendo 64, the game developers never disabled the cheat menu from multiplayer options. This meant you could just boot up the cheat menu during this mode and do things like enter a cheat that warps you to a one-player level. And then the game would absolutely break, because it would bring all the players to that world in split-screen glory. So of course, when it came to Sonic Adventure 2, why wouldn't I want the same thing? Wouldn't you? And that's when the magic started happening. So Sonic Adventure 2 has this interesting quirk where the characters you choose, at least from my understanding, actually determine the theme of the level. So anywhere you go as a treasure hunting character means the game is going to boot up a treasure hunting scenario and try to stuff gems into a world where there are none. But not all the parameters are just defined by the character. For example, if in the multiplayer mode, you select a stage in the mech fight scenario that has a unified camera, as in both characters are in the camera at once and it isn't split screen, but you tell the game to load a different stage when the game fades to black, well, that scenario will load into the chosen level and you'll have a single camera despite it being two-player. Make it super crazy, and you'll have a mech shooter with a treasure hunter secondary character, but Green Forest was loaded in from a car race. And you just add some spice to your game. Just look at that triple overlay HUD down below. We got car laps, a health bar, and we're searching for some gems, man. And it was through this experimentation that I discovered a multitude of things that, for some reason, I decided to wait 3 years to make a video on. So here they are. One of these may be familiar to some of you, but I've added some more to the story. So first off, let's combine two characters. So Green Forest is an amazing stage, as is White Jungle. And not so much because of the level itself, but because there are vines in it. And vines are the ticket to some really crazy stuff. Like treasure hunter characters just freezing in place and floating in the air. But it's when we throw mechs on the stage that the real craziness begins. So for some reason, mechs have the hardest time with vines. Other characters like Rouge, despite getting stuck, still have vine swinging animations, which is kinda neat. But mechs either get stuck in their idle animation like Tails, get deleted from existence like the Chao Walkers, or their mech gets smashed into scrap parts like Eggman. Which is kinda brutal. But Eggman has a really weird quirk when it comes to getting smashed, because if we have Tails loaded in as a second player, something else happens when we touch that vine. Eggman gets smashed, and his body fuses with Tails. What you're left with is Tails in a broken mech that's spazzing out of control, with textures from Eggman's body ripped off him and placed on Tails' face. And to make matters worse, if we zoom into Tails' mouth, we'll find Eggman's hands inside of it. Truly, the worst of Nightmare Fuel. I made a Let's Play video about this way back in 2018 that talked about this briefly at the end, but revisiting it today, I wanted to relive this awful experience. This time, I was going to load in the alternative costume for Eggman, and when we trigger the vine, the same thing happens and different colors are sampled. Now the problem with this setup, and why I stopped messing with it before, was because I had leached the universal single camera setting, which meant I had no way to guide the second player to the first player. They were way back at the start of the level, and this level isn't doable without some sort of moonjump code for mechs, because they can't make it through the first tunnel. But this time I was a bit wiser with the tools that were available, and I peeled the mangled corpse from the vine and took it all the way back to Tails. I was surprised to see that Tails was still intact alongside this contorted clone. So I decided to hit this monstrosity, and to my surprise, it was enough to free Eggman from his Tails flesh prison and restore him to humanity. I don't really understand why Eggman is the only character this works for, and why it only applies if Tails is loaded on the same map. I tried pretty much every character combination, and this only happens one time. It's creepy, but we still got other bizarre things to cover, so let's move on. When I was messing around with the car minigame, I found that the combination of Eggman and Shadow actually forced Shadow to load in with all his red highlights turned white. It's kind of strange, and I'm not sure why, but it's a pretty neat look for the lad. It's like the opposite of Super Shadow. There's also some other strange things that I had happen to. When messing with the snowboard presets, I found out that Sonic just likes to crumple up into a torso and crash the game. So that's a thing. I don't recommend trying it at home, but Sonic is quite the contortionist. Taking this a step further, and if we mess with the preloaded settings of a boarding level, we can actually have Amy load in with her snowboard on her head. Makes all our animations a bit weird, and it's quite fun to watch. We just have to make sure we don't try to jump off a ramp because it'll crash the game. Which leads us to my final finding, and something just as bizarre as the character fusion I talked about before. I like to call this character cloning. So it's completely possible to choose the same player in versus mode if the player selection is changed on load. That in itself isn't the clone though. But what makes it even more interesting is if you decide to make one of the characters Mechless Eggman and set the other character to Eggman in a mech, because the game does not know what to do. For some reason, this breaks the rigging and animations of the second Eggman, and in turn spawns a third Eggman in a mech that is paired with the Mechless Eggman. Yeah, I know, it's confusing. Sometimes this Eggman is flickering out of existence, like if we select the duel between Knuckles and Rouge as our battleground. Doing this makes it so player 2 cannot control the second character, and the second character will try to kill player 1 as a computer. However, a deformed Eggman will be floating up in the air, while an Eggman with an upside down head and a broken mech will try to kill you. It's nightmare fuel. It's also weird because Eggman without a mech has no freefall animation, so when the floor drops out, you just float in the air standing still. Tails, on the other hand, does have one without his mech, so it's strange. Anyways, if you get killed or kill the opponent, nothing happens. You just respawn or they respawn and it gives them an even bigger health bar. After someone dies though, the computer player no longer moves and the fight goes on forever since there's no kill condition. Let's swap over to the Lost Colony battle map now to take a look at these Eggmen. What I love about this map is that if you play as a Mechless character, you just die immediately during the cutscene. This is because the game defaultly spawns Mechless characters exactly in the middle of the map when battle stages are chosen. But because you die during the cutscene, when the game starts, you are actually invincible forever. In this level, we can see two mechs side by side because they spawn by each other. It's strange because the mechs respond to player 2's movement, but the clone mech can hurt player 1 and player 2. If player 2 moves too far from the starting location, the clone mech will get stuck frozen in place. Killing player 2 doesn't do anything at all, and player 1 is a god from their acid bath, so you can't kill them. If we redo this scenario from the top with Tails, we'll find ourselves in a similar situation except the models for Tails' mechs won't be scrambled like Eggman's were. Tails dies in acid, becomes immortal, and the two Tails mechs are tied to player 2's movements. In this situation, the clone mech is actually immortal as well. Attacking it for some reason damages player 1, but it can't kill player 1. It just takes damage forever and puts player 1 at 0 health without killing them. So you can either take your pick of 3 Eggmans or 3 Tails with this strange setup. If we head back to the dueling arena between Rouge and Knuckles, the same situation will occur as Eggman's, except the clone mech disappears. I have no idea if this is just the GameCube game buckling under all this conflicting logic, but it's a lot of fun to break the game by loading in situations that aren't supposed to occur. Now, understanding logic in video games has really been monumental for what I do here on YouTube and for developing the game I made last year. It wasn't something I always knew either, but thankfully, through Brilliant, you can teach yourself all sorts of computer science and math concepts in a way that is both fun, but also makes it more approachable. Most of what I do on YouTube and in game development falls upon the fundamentals of what makes something occur, whether it's troubleshooting a bug in a game like Zardy's Maze, or testing existing games to see what they can do. Math and computer science are behind all of that. Brilliant makes learning the core concepts behind math and science interesting. With Brilliant, it isn't just about memorizing a concept or equation. It's about looking at the particular concept from a point of view that just makes sense. Explaining things in an interactive way that actually makes you want to learn instead of typical teaching methods that makes learning not very exciting. So if you're ready to dive into the Brilliant experience and better your tomorrow, go to brilliant.org/SwankyBox and sign up for free. And also, the first 200 people that go to that link will get 20% off the annual premium subscription. And a big thanks to Brilliant for supporting my YouTube channel and my game development projects, as it is greatly appreciated. And with that, I'll see you all soon in my next video. Cheers!